Okay, this is Justin's audience, Aunt Ginny, Mom and Dad, and me. And here's Justin.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Growing up in an Italian family was always taken for granted by me, but always very interesting. To hear Nana and Papa converse in Italian to English, English to Italian, was quite annoying. I just wanted them to speak one language. I remember all the big family get-togethers, all of Grandpapa's brothers and his sister. It was just the typical stereotype of an American family. As I grew older, traveling and exploring anywhere outside of Wisconsin became a hobby of mine. My Uncle DJ met his Italian wife in Key West, Florida, and eventually they were married, had their daughter Lauren, and moved to Boccagnano, Italy. Naturally, as close as my uncle and I were, I jumped on the opportunity to visit them in the Bella Campagna d'Italia, the beautiful country of Italy. My travels to Italy have broadened my views on the Italian culture and enlightened my understanding of my Italian heritage. So I'd like to share with you some of my interesting adventures while I was over there and things that caught my attention. Number one is their culture. It was just a beautiful culture, their lifestyle over there. Food, of course, was a big part of their culture, and one of my favorite things, of course, and the great wine over there. Their daily lifestyle a lot of times started out in the morning with a small breakfast, usually some fruit, some coffee. They'd go off to work, come back in the afternoon for a lunch break and a siesta, so they would take a little nap and then go back to work, and usually would get back at a later time, which that's why their dinners were much later, usually around 8 or 9 o'clock at night. When it was dinner time, that's when the family would all hover around the kitchen table and converse for about at least 2 hours minimum. So it was a very cultural difference between here in the States and just the way their work style and how they would hang around the kitchen table a lot and just talk a lot and have their family time. Also, the social gatherings with the locals in the town, a lot of them would take place in the piazzas, which is the town square, or the little courtyards in the village. The elderly would usually sit around and play cards and drink wine and just talk about whatever, anything that fancied their imagination. And then the youth, younger generations, a lot of them would hang outside and just kind of hang out on the corners or play younger games, video games, and a lot of times there was little convenience stores that served coffee, alcohol, and also had video games, and you could also get just little groceries, kind of like our convenience stores here. One thing about the younger generations is they're big supporters of the Communist Party, which of course clashed with my political viewpoints. That's a whole other story. The architecture in Italy is just unbelievable. A lot of the villages that I visited were from the medieval period, so they're thousands of years old, and a lot of them had the name Castillo in them, which means castle in Italian. A lot of the castles were built into the hillsides on high ground. They had huge fortress stores, and this was to prevent invaders from coming in. Inside the villages, were a lot of them were apartments that had cantinas, which were little like wine cellars or places where it was cool and damp to keep their food fresh and their beverages colder. And some of these cantinas were eventually converted into basically our version of a studio apartment, just one big room. The countryside, or the Campagna in Italy, was beautiful. If you would travel outside of the villages along the country roads, you would see vineyards and olive groves as far as the eye could see. A lot of these the areas that I visited were in the foothills south of the Alps, so it was just a beautiful setting, and just a lot of neat wine cellars and olive groves. Lastly, I'll just share a few experiences that my aunt's niece, she was closer to my age, so it was kind of nice having her take me around and just do things that were more orientated towards my genre and group and age. She took me to a medieval festival in the village of Narni, which is very neat. They had a lot of old costumes from the medieval period, and played Byzantine type music throughout the streets. Also a music festival in the valleys that was kind of carved out of a mountainside, and she took me to a music festival there where it was mostly blues and rock and roll. There was an abbey where the nuns and the priests practiced their fellowships from all over the world. They would come here, and basically it was like a retreat here in the States. Visited a local winemaker. He basically pulled up to this old man's house, honked the horn, and his wife pointed us to where the cellar was, and we'd go back there, fill up our jugs of wine, and watch his whole process of how he made wine. And grappa. He didn't have a license to brew it, but he shared it with us, and it was very strong. And then, of course, I did visit the Rome and the Vatican, which I'm sure most people are familiar with. So to sum everything up, this experience was just a life-changing thing in my life. Helped me embrace my Italian heritage, and I plan on sharing my experiences with my future class when I become a teacher, and sharing my experiences with my family has been a great time as well. Thank you.